Greetings, everyone. Well, last time we had a nice little pair of Blu-rays, kind of a mixed bag. I know not everybody's cup of tea, but yeah, what the heck, I mean, I'm a sucker for fun horror movies and stuff based on comic books. So if I can mix that into the Halloween selections, why not, right? And yeah. Oh, yep. I think it's time for us to go downstairs and find out what Sam has picked out for us today. Let's go. Hey Sam, how's it going? Wow, so some pretty cool choices so far. I'm anxious to see what you've got for us today. Oh, this is an interesting one. Yeah, I kind of have mixed feelings on this one. Well, first off, it's a remake of a Japanese horror film. I used to have the Japanese version on DVD, but it was one of the ones that I sold in the Great Purge of 2010. But I kept the remake around because I hadn't got around to watching it yet. Quite frankly, because the Japanese version disturbed me so much, I was in no great rush to watch the remake. I am, of course, talking about the darker cut of Dark Water with Jennifer Connelly. Not on Blu-ray, on DVD. I basically picked this up for next to nothing at a pawn shop. They had this and the Japanese version side by side for like $5 or possibly even less. I think it might have been like $2 or $3 a piece. So I was like, yeah, what the hell? I haven't seen either of them, so let's check it out. And yeah, so anyway, Dark Water. That's what we're going to talk about today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. So, Dark Water. The darker cut, no less. Yeah, this is one that I have not picked up on Blu-ray yet because, as near as I can figure, this particular cut of the film is only on the DVD. If I'm wrong about that, please feel free to correct me. I didn't bother to look it up before doing this video. But I'm pretty sure that I'm right on that. Yeah, similarly, Gothica, which is one that I've been wanting to see for a very long time. There was an extended, unrated version released on DVD, very limited edition. I haven't really seen it around very much. Meant to pick it up for ages, never did. Still haven't seen Gothica because I really want to see that version of it. But the Blu-ray, while I have seen it cheap on a number of occasions, only has the theatrical cut. So I might just bite the bullet and get that one at some point. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Gothica because I don't even own it and I've never seen it. So what's the point? We're talking about Dark Water. Yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for pretty much anything with Jennifer Connelly in it. I think a lot of you are probably on the same page with me on that. Yeah, I gotta say, I really like a lot of the stuff she's done in recent years, just, coming into her own as a serious actress. Of course, we've all seen Labyrinth and such, and I did a review of Phenomena last year, which was a Dario Argento film that she actually did I think the same year that she did Labyrinth. Great stuff, great actress, really like her a lot. So that was one reason I wanted to check out this film, of course. And then, of course, I found out that it was a remake of a Japanese horror film. And just kind of in the wake of the success of The Ring, we've just had this onslaught of Japanese horror films, Korean horror films, and such that have been remade as American versions, and it's been kind of a mixed bag. I find, like, a lot of the time, the original is better, but other times I have found that I've preferred the remake. So while I tend to shy away from remakes, like modern remakes of classic American horror films, for example, when it comes to these American remakes of foreign horror films, I've been a little bit more open to the possibilities, I guess. Because I say in some cases, I'm not going to say specifically which ones because that's going to be the subject of a future review that will be in this batch of Halloween reviews. But there have been some where I've actually found that I prefer the American version for one reason or another. So in the case of Dark Water, I actually found this at the pawn shop fairly cheap, and I think I mentioned in the intro. I think it was like stupidly cheap, like $2 or $3 for, and they had both this and the Japanese version. So I watched the Japanese version a while ago, and there were certain elements in it that I found very disturbing on a personal level, and as such, I kind of put off watching the remake for a very long time, well, until just a couple weeks ago. So, what are my thoughts on the remake? Well, first off, I wish I still had the Japanese version because I would love to do like a proper, side by side kind of discussion. But alas, it was one of the ones that I sold last year when, as you know, I was desperate for money and had to purge a lot of the collection. The Great Purge of 2010, as it's come to be known. Um, so unfortunately, I can only sort of talk about it without really showing you. But I, I liked the Japanese version a lot, but it was quite disturbing in some respects. But I mean, in some respects, it was disturbing in ways that made me not want to check out the remake. But in other ways, it was disturbing in ways that were effective horror, and I thought worked really well. So it was kind of in two minds about it. On the one hand, I really wanted to check out the remake to see what they did differently, and to see how true they were to the spirit of the original, and if it was an improvement or not. But on the other hand, I didn't want to check it out because of those things that bothered me. I will talk about those things later in the review with a spoiler warning. From this point, I'm not going to talk about anything spoilerific. But essentially, in this case, I have to side with the Japanese version. Overall, I think the American version did a very good job, but there were certain elements to it that I felt were done better in the Japanese version. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. For now, let's just take a look at the DVD itself and see what you got on here. So this is, of course, the uncut, unrated version, known as the darker cut. In terms of bonus features, you have a pretty decent selection here. You've got deleted scenes, you've got The Sound of Terror, the subliminal soundscapes of Dark Water, a featurette on the movie's sound design. Analyzing dark water sequences, explore the creation of specific scenes with viewing options. Beneath the Surface, the making of Dark Water featurette. An extraordinary ensemble featurette. And that's it. So as to a summary of the story, well, I'll just read the back of the box because I'm feeling lazy today. Far more terrifying than what was seen in theaters, this special version of Dark Water is a thoroughly absorbing, suspense-filled thriller starring Jennifer Connelly. Dahlia Williams and her 5-year-old daughter are ready to begin a new life together. You may begin to see already where the disturbing parts for me personally come in. Her 5-year-old daughter, who is just adorable, by the way, and very, very well acted by the little girl that got to play the character. But their new apartment, dilapidated and worn, suddenly seems to take on a life of its own. Mysterious noises, persistent leaks of dark water, and other strange happenings in the deserted apartment above send Dahlia on a haunting and mystifying pursuit, one that unleashes a torrent of living nightmares. Yes, a BitTorrent of living nightmares. So that's essentially it in a nutshell. Is she's trying to make a new life for herself with her daughter, and strange things are happening in their new apartment. They're basically very short on money, and she's had the character of Dahlia herself had a very troubled childhood and such. So she's really trying to be the best mother she possibly can to her child. She's going through a bitter divorce. Well, I guess she's had the divorce by this point, but there's like custody issues and just all these horrible just life things that a lot of you out there may have gone through in one form or another at some point. But throw in some supernatural goings on top of that, and it doesn't make things any better. It's a very tragic, dark, depressing story in a lot of ways. Very oppressive. in a lot of ways. Things just spiraling out of control. I mean, even if it was just a story, even without the supernatural elements, if it was just a story about her trying to cope with the shittiness of her life, that alone would have made an interesting movie, I think. And that's one of the reasons I think the story aspect of it works really well. Is it's got a really strong foundation with some genuinely sympathetic characters and whatnot. But as to the problems I had with it, okay, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the film, either version, and you don't want anything spoiled, stop here. Okay, that's all the warning you get. Okay, so the source of the hauntings in the apartment is basically a little girl who went mysteriously missing. Now, this little girl manifests initially as what everyone thinks is Dahlia's daughter having an imaginary friend. But it seems to be a very vivid imaginary friend who she hears her having conversations with and such. She just hears her daughter's side of the conversation. So the little girl basically died mysteriously. And was abandoned by her parents. Basically, her parents split up, and the mother thought the father had taken the daughter. The father thought the mother had taken the daughter, or maybe they knew what had gone on. You don't really find out for sure. It's all kind of left up to speculation. And some of the characters who are filling in what happened in the apartment above previously are lying about certain things, so they might have been lying about that aspect as well. And that's one of the things I find interesting about it is there's a lot of questions that are raised by the answers that you're given. I love stuff like that just messes with your head. It's great. So that aspect of it is really well done and just adds another layer of tragedy to the story. So essentially, what happened was the little girl climbed into the water tank at the top of the building and drowned. She was just like going in to check it out, and she dropped. I think she drops her little backpack in their bag or something, and basically falls in. She just falls in, and she can't get. There's no way to get out, and she drowns. And then her tormented spirit haunts the building, and she specifically haunts Jennifer Connelly's character because it reminds her of her mother, and she sees the wonderful relationship that she has with her daughter, and is essentially jealous of that, and wants to have a mother. And here's the part where it comes in where I had a big problem with it, was the end of the film. Now this is true for both versions. The end of the film, the ghost becomes increasingly hostile over the course of the film, and by the end of the film, the ghost is basically attempting to drown the little girl. Now this part I didn't have a problem with particularly because it's a horror movie. Horrible things happen, and it's not an adult doing this. It's another little kid. It's two little kids fighting. So it's treading on very, very sensitive territory. But I think they did that aspect of it well, where it's a little girl, trying to kill another little girl. Not that makes it okay, but it makes it less difficult to watch than if it's a grown up doing that. So, in order to save her daughter, she has to become the ghost's mother. So essentially, she abandons her daughter in order to save her. Now, the way this scene plays out differently in both versions, very slightly differently. First off, in the Japanese version, you never see the ghost girl's face, and the ghost girl never speaks. Even in the flashbacks where you're seeing what happened to her, you never see the ghost girl's face, and she never speaks a word in the whole thing. I think she might make some creepy noises from time to time, but you never actually see her face or hear her speak. In the American version, you both see her face, and she speaks very clearly what her intentions are. The thing that made the Japanese version so beautiful, and I think worked far better, was the fact that they were able to convey all that information without saying a word. It was all done through the ghost's actions, and just body language. Essentially, you understood what the ghost wanted, and it didn't need to say a thing. But in the American version, they basically dumbed it down, and they spelled it out. Fed you the information with a silver spoon. And yeah, it's unfortunate that they did that because I think it really lessened the effectiveness of that scene. Also, the tail end of it is quite a bit different. In the Japanese version, the mother basically abandons her daughter for the ghost girl and just disappears and just like goes away with the ghost girl and is never seen again. And the little girl is just left standing there like, what the fuck? And she's completely traumatized by the experience. But then it fast forwards to like 15 years later. So it like cuts to 15 years later. So we're given this moment where we're able to see what the ultimate effect was on the girl, and the effect was that she obviously felt abandoned and such, but I forget exactly what happened like detail wise. It's been so long since I saw it, but she basically goes back to where everything happened, and she sees her mother there, like the ghost of her mother, and then they sort of have a little moment, and then everything's okay from that point forward. So it ends up being okay. But the whole abandonment of the little girl, the abandonment of your daughter for the ghost girl, I mean, the way it plays out makes sense within the context of the story. But, I mean, because she did it to save her daughter. It was the only way to save her daughter was to abandon her. So, I mean, it's one of those complex moral dilemma things. But just the simple fact that she had to abandon her daughter, this poor, beautiful, wonderful little girl who just loved her mom to death, and she had to, just leave her. The other layer to that was that the mother character had a troubled childhood where her mother basically flat out told her that she hated her and wished she was never born. So she had a really shitty childhood where she did not feel loved by her mother. So above all else, this character wanted to show her daughter love, and just and that's essentially what I think makes it work, is the fact that she literally sacrifices herself to get the ghost away from her daughter to save her daughter, as the ultimate expression of love for her daughter, saying like, I am going to give up being your mother so that you can live, and in the American version that's essentially explained to the little girl shortly after the incident occurs. So we don't have the fast forward to 15 years later, but we do have that sense of closure as far as how the little girl is going to do. So it's definitely softened from the Japanese version, and I kind of expected that would happen, because I thought, the way it played out in the Japanese version, I would be really surprised if that's what they did in the American version. So I knew it was going to be different. Like, I just knew common sense wise it was going to be different going in. But that said, knowing that it was softened and seeing how it was softened, I got to side with the Japanese version. I think the Japanese version definitely played out better. So yeah, so would I recommend Dark Water? Yeah, I would definitely recommend Dark Water. I don't think it's as like flat out terrifying as movies like The Ring and The Grudge, but I definitely think it's worth checking out. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I will probably watch it again when I feel up to it. But I mean, that's to me the sign of a movie doing its job, where it makes you feel something to the point where you like it to the point where you want to watch it again, but there are aspects of it that keep you away for a while because you can't handle those aspects again, so you have to wait until you feel up to it. That's powerful shit, man. That's the power of cinema right there. So yeah, I guess you could say I liked Dark Water. It was definitely a harrowing experience for me. I think there's about a 4 or 5 year gap between when I watched the original and when I watched the remake. That's how deeply the first version affected me. So take that as you will. So let's take a quick look at the packaging, and then we'll say goodbye.
Dark Water. The darker cut. It's so dark. You can't even see anything. It's so dark. No. There you go. Mouth with the ring. And on the back, we do have a pretty decent selection of bonus features there, as you can see. Yeah, pretty cool. Not too bad. And then inside, yeah, you can tell this was an X rental. It's got a sticker on it there from Rogers Video, whatever. But I was happy to see that it does actually keep the original insert. Just put that there for you. Pause it and read it or whatever. And then there, it gives you basically a summary of the special features. So you have, I don't know, maybe about an hour's worth of featurettes there. That's pretty cool. And Flight Plan, which I've actually never seen, but there is a trailer for it on the DVD here, which is pretty cool. Close that up, and there we go. And just a standard key case, of course, that's the spine. And there we go. Nothing fancy, but it works.
And that's the packaging of Dark Water, the darker cut. Alrighty, well that's it from me to you for now. Yeah, so we'll see you next time. Till then, thanks for watching, and sayonara.